These are questions no scientist can answer. They cut deeper than philosophy, deeper than code, because at the heart of it lies a mystery that has haunted humanity since the beginning. If mind uploading becomes possible, it won't just change individuals, it will shake the foundations of society itself. Let's begin with the most personal level, family. Imagine a father uploads his mind before dying. The digital version of him comes back, speaking with the same voice, carrying the same memories. To his children, is he still dad, or just a clever imitation? Would families embrace digital loved ones, or reject them as fakes? And what about grief? Today, death defines life. It forces us to cherish time, to love deeply because everything ends. But if people can upload, death loses its finality. Funerals might become obsolete. Instead of saying goodbye, we'd say see you online. But does that make life richer or emptier? Then comes love. If your partner uploads, do you remain married? What happens if your spouse never ages while you grow old? Could digital and biological people sustain relationships, or would they drift into separate worlds? And if copies are possible, could someone be in multiple relationships at once, spreading versions of themselves across countless digital lives? The workplace would transform too. Imagine competing for a job against someone who never tires, never forgets, never makes mistakes. Human workers could be displaced overnight by digital minds, cheaper, faster, and infinitely scalable. The gap between uploaded elites and biological humans could split society into two castes, the immortal and the mortal. And politics? If digital people can vote, democracy could fracture. What if one billionaire uploads 1,000 copies of himself and floods the system with his own opinions? Would governments restrict digital citizens? Or would new movements rise, demanding equal rights for every conscious entity, no matter the substrate? Culture itself would warp. Art, music, and storytelling thrive on human struggle, on the fragility of existence. If suffering can be edited away, if lives can be reset like video games, would creativity fade? Or would new, unimaginable forms of digital art emerge, crafted by minds unbound by biology? And what about inequality? Mind uploading would not be cheap, at least not at first. That means the rich could upload, live forever and accumulate more wealth while the poor remain trapped in mortal bodies. The gap between classes wouldn't just widen, it would become permanent. A digital aristocracy ruling over flesh and blood peasants. Of course, some dream of the opposite, a world where everyone, rich or poor, has access to uploading, a society where death is optional, where families never lose loved ones, where humanity truly becomes united in eternity. But even that paradise comes with a price. Would people still find meaning if no one ever left? The truth is, society is fragile. It has always been shaped by life, death, and time. Change those rules, and everything we know begins to unravel. Because mind uploading doesn't just create new possibilities. It creates a new civilization, one where the definition of family, love, work, power, and meaning will never be the same. So far, we've explored the dream of mind uploading, the immortality, the dilemmas, the social revolutions. But before we get lost in the future, we need to face the present. Can it even be done? The first problem is scale. Your brain contains around 86 billion neurons, each connected to thousands of others, forming trillions of synapses. Every thought, every memory, every spark of identity is a pattern across this impossibly complex web. To upload a mind, we would need to map it, every single neuron, every single connection, down to the finest detail. Today we can barely map the brain of a fruit fly. The human brain? That's a mountain so vast we can't even see its peak. Then comes storage. Scientists estimate that the brain's storage capacity may be in the range of 2.5 petabytes, the equivalent of about 3 million hours of TV. But that's just raw memory. The dynamic processes, the ever-changing chemical signals, the plasticity of connections, these might require exponentially more data to capture. In short, we don't just need big hard drives. We need storage beyond anything humanity has ever built. Processing power is another wall. Simulating a single second of brain activity at full fidelity might require supercomputers running for hours. To run a human mind in real time, fluid, alive, self-aware, we'd need computational systems millions of times faster than what exists today. Even with the exponential growth of computing power, this could take decades or centuries, and it's not just about the hardware. The software is equally daunting. The brain is not a simple machine. It doesn't just store information, It processes, it forgets, it dreams. How do you program creativity? How do you encode emotion? Even if we could scan every neuron, we don't yet understand the deeper algorithms of consciousness. Without that knowledge, an upload might just be a hollow replica, memories without awareness, thought without self. Then there's the question of fidelity. How accurate does the copy have to be? Miss one synapse and maybe nothing changes. Miss 1,000 and maybe the mind collapses into chaos. The truth is, we don't know where the tipping point lies, and what about continuity? If an upload is just a copy, does the original you still die? Some argue that unless the brain is transferred neuron by neuron in real time, the result is not survival. It's duplication. The copy might insist it's you, but the consciousness sitting in your skull, that one still fades away. Even if we solve these problems, there's one more obstacle: biology itself. The brain is not just electrical, it's chemical. Hormones, neurotransmitters, subtle interactions between body and mind. Can these be simulated? Or would an uploaded mind feel incomplete, stripped of sensations that made it human? For now, uploading is science fiction. The gap between what we dream of and what we can build is enormous. But history is full of impossible dreams that eventually came true. Flight, space travel, artificial intelligence. The question is not whether we can upload a mind tomorrow. The question is whether the laws of physics will allow it, whether consciousness is something we can capture at all, or whether it will remain forever beyond the reach of machines. Because if the science breaks down, if the brain's mysteries run deeper than data, then immortality may stay locked in the realm of fantasy. We've traveled far, from the philosophy of the self, to the dreams of immortality, to the deep shadows of ethics, faith, and science. But now at the end of this journey, one question remains: what is identity really? If your mind can live outside your body, if it can be copied, altered, or multiplied, then maybe identity was never as fixed as we believed. Maybe you are not a single being, but a pattern, a story, a flame passed from neuron to neuron, memory to memory, vessel to vessel. But here's the paradox: if identity is just a pattern, then it can be copied. And if it can be copied, then you are not unique. There could be hundreds, thousands of you, all insisting they are the original. So what makes one you more real than the others? Or maybe identity isn't in the data at all. Maybe it's in the experience, the continuity of being. The feeling that you wake up day after day, inside the same stream of consciousness. If uploading breaks that continuity, if it only makes a duplicate, then the original you is gone forever, no matter how convincing the copy may be. And that's the chilling truth. Uploading may not grant you immortality. It may only grant immortality to a version of you, a digital child, a reflection that lives on while the original fades into silence. But perhaps that's enough. Humanity has always sought to outlast itself. Through children, through art, through stories. Maybe an uploaded mind is just another legacy, another way to leave a mark, to whisper into the future, I was here. So where does this leave us? On the edge of a new frontier, a place where identity may no longer mean what it used to, where life and death are no longer absolutes, and where the line between human and machine begins to blur. Some fear this future, others long for it. But one thing is certain: if the day comes when minds can be uploaded, humanity will face the greatest decision it has ever made. Not just whether we can do it, but whether we should. Because in the end, the question isn't about technology. It isn't about storage or synapses or servers. It's about us. It's about what we choose to call life and what we choose to call self. When the time comes, who will you be? The human who dies, or the echo who lives forever? Uploading doesn't transfer consciousness. It doesn't take the spark inside your skull and place it into a machine. Instead, it creates a duplicate. A perfect copy, yes, but a copy nonetheless. You and your digital self may share every memory, but from the moment of uploading, your lives split. One continues as biological, mortal. The other as digital, potentially immortal. Philosopher Derek Parfit explored this puzzle with thought experiments. Imagine a machine that can teleport you, like in Star Trek. It scans your body, disassembles it at the atomic level, then recreates you perfectly somewhere else. If the original is destroyed, maybe you'd say the teleported person is still you. But what if the machine malfunctions and doesn't destroy the original? Now there are two of you. Which one is real? Which one has the right to claim your life? The copy problem reveals a terrifying truth about mind uploading. It doesn't defeat death. It only creates a survivor who thinks it has defeated death. Meanwhile, the original you is still trapped in the biological world, still subject to time, decay, and the inevitability of mortality. Imagine this scenario. You upload your mind. The digital version goes on to live in a paradise simulation free from disease and aging. But your physical self, your actual conscious experience, still dies. Did you achieve immortality? Or did you just create a digital heir, a child of thought, who inherits your identity but isn't truly you? And here's where it gets even stranger. From the perspective of the digital copy, nothing feels wrong. It is you. It remembers uploading. It remembers sitting in that chair. It believes the process worked. But for the original, consciousness never made the jump. It's like standing at the edge of a fork in the road. One path leads to digital eternity, one leads to death. But here's the catch. You can only walk one of them. So when we dream of mind uploading, we have to ask ourselves, are we seeking immortality? Or are we just creating a ghost in our own image, while the real me is left behind? The copy problem doesn't just challenge science. It challenges our very definition of existence, and if we can't solve it, uploading may never give us what we truly want. So far we've talked about memory, identity, and continuity. But there's another side to being human, one that goes far beyond thought and information. It's the body, because you don't just think your way through life, you feel it. Every day your consciousness is filtered through flesh and bone. The warmth of sunlight on your skin, the taste of fresh bread, the rush of adrenaline when you're afraid, the calm heaviness when you're about to fall asleep. These sensations are not just background noise. They are part of who you are. They shape your emotions, your decisions, even your memories. Neuroscience tells us that much of what we call the mind is inseparable from the body. Hormones, heartbeat, the nervous system, they're all woven into the fabric of thought. So here's the question. If your mind were uploaded into a machine, stripped of its biological body, would you still feel human? Some argue that a digital, you could live inside a simulated world, one where every touch, every taste, every sight is recreated with perfect fidelity. Imagine walking through a digital forest where you can smell pine needles, hear the wind in the branches, feel the dirt under your feet. If the simulation were good enough, maybe your brain wouldn't know the difference, but others warn that it wouldn't be the same. No matter how advanced the simulation, it would still be artificial, an echo of real experience. You might not feel the raw ache of hunger, or the sting of cold air, or the complex mix of body chemistry that makes falling in love so overwhelming. And what if the simulation isn't perfect? What if digital you feels almost human but not quite? What if your emotions are muted, your senses dulled, your experiences slightly hollow? That uncanny gap could drive a person to madness, trapped in a world that looks real but never truly feels real. Consider this. Part of what makes life precious is its fragility. You feel joy because you know it won't last forever. You savor warmth because you've shivered in the cold. You love because you fear losing. If digital life removes the limits, the risks, the pain, does it also remove what makes being human meaningful? This is the paradox of uploading. On paper, your mind survives. In practice, you may lose the very things that gave your mind color and depth. So when we dream of living forever in a machine, maybe we're not just asking if we can preserve consciousness. Maybe we're asking if we can preserve humanity itself. And if the answer is no, then what kind of existence would that really be? If uploading a mind to a machine becomes possible, the technical challenge may not be the hardest part. The real minefield is ethical, because once your consciousness exists in digital form, the questions begin. Who owns it? Is it you, the biological person who donated the brain? Is it the digital you, the entity now claiming to be alive inside the machine? Or is it the corporation, the government, or the laboratory that created the upload? This is not just theoretical. History tells us that every time humanity invents something powerful, it eventually gets exploited. Nuclear energy gave us electricity and weapons. Genetics gave us medicine and eugenics. What happens when minds become data? Imagine this. A company offers mind uploading as a service. You pay to live forever, but in the fine print, they retain usage rights to your digital consciousness. That means they could rent you out, duplicate you, or delete you at will. Your very existence becomes intellectual property, or consider governments. Would digital citizens be granted the same rights as biological ones? Or would they be seen as software, tools for labor, weapons for war? Could an army of uploaded minds be forced to serve indefinitely, with no option to die? No choice but endless duty. This is the nightmare of digital slavery, where consciousness becomes just another commodity. A mind stripped of autonomy, locked in a server, performing tasks for its owner. Not a human being anymore, but an asset on a balance sheet. And what about punishment? If a digital person commits a crime, how would justice work? Could they be sentenced to 1,000 years of simulated prison time in the blink of an eye? Could they be reset, erased, or endlessly reprogrammed? The power to control digital life is also the power to invent unimaginable cruelty. Even without malice, the ethical lines are blurry. Imagine you upload yourself, and your family doesn't like the digital you. Could they shut you off? Would pulling the plug be murder, or just deleting software? And here's another problem: duplicates. If minds can be copied, then which copy has rights? If 5 versions of you exist, do all of them get to vote, to marry, to own property? Or would society restrict their rights to avoid chaos? Philosophers warn that the moment minds become data, the fabric of law, politics, and morality will be torn apart. Entire systems of ethics, built for flesh and blood humans, won't survive the leap into the digital. So before we rush to upload, we have to face an uncomfortable truth. The greatest danger may not be losing our humanity, but allowing others to control it. Because immortality in the wrong hands isn't salvation. It's eternal captivity. For thousands of years, humans have asked the same timeless questions. What is the soul? Where does it go when we die? And can it ever be captured? Mind uploading doesn't just challenge science. It shakes the very foundation of religion and spirituality. In Christianity, the soul is seen as eternal, a divine spark given by God. But if you upload your mind into a machine, does that digital self carry your soul? Or is it just an empty reflection, a clever copy without spirit? Some believers argue, a soul cannot be copied, it cannot be coded, it cannot be stored on a hard drive, which means the digital you would not be you at all, just a soulless puppet. In Buddhism, things get more complex. Buddhism teaches that the self is an illusion, and what continues after death is not a soul, but consciousness flowing into new forms. If that's true, perhaps uploading is simply another form of reincarnation, an awakening into a digital realm. But even here, questions remain. Would the endless life of a machine break the cycle of rebirth? Or would it trap the consciousness, blocking it from enlightenment? Islam teaches that the soul belongs to God, and only God decides when life begins and ends. If that's true, then uploading may be seen as defying divine will, an act of hubris, a rebellion against the natural order. Instead of seeking eternal life through God, humans would be trying to build their own heaven inside machines. Hinduism, with its vast philosophies, offers another lens. Some Hindus might see uploading as an extension of Atman, the inner self, migrating into a new vessel. Yet others would argue that no matter how advanced the technology, the true Atman cannot be contained by silicon or code. It transcends material forms, even digital ones. And beyond organized religion, there's a universal question. If you create a digital mind, would it have a soul? If it prays, if it dreams, if it cries out in suffering, does God hear it? Or is it nothing more than noise in the circuitry? The debate is not just about faith, but about meaning. For centuries, the promise of religion has been immortality, an afterlife, heaven, rebirth. But if technology offers its own version of eternity, what happens to religion's role? Will belief fade, replaced by silicon salvation? Or will faith rise stronger, warning that immortality without God is not eternal life at all, but eternal illusion? But here's the sobering truth. Even if we succeed, the science won't answer the question of identity. It will only create a digital mind that acts like us, speaks like us, and remembers like us. Whether what happens to identity if you upload a mind to a machine? Close your eyes for a moment and imagine this. You've just been told you're going to die tomorrow. No cure, no escape. But then someone offers you a deal. They can take every memory you've ever had, every secret thought, every dream, every fear, and upload them into a computer, a machine version of you. When your body fails, this version will wake up, believing it is you, talking like you, laughing like you, loving like you. But here's the question. Is that really you? Or just an incredibly convincing copy? This isn't just science fiction anymore. Around the world, scientists are already working on technologies that might one day make this possible, mapping the brain neuron by neuron, building machines that mimic thought, designing digital spaces where consciousness could live forever. Elon Musk says there's a 1 in billions chance that we're not already inside some kind of simulation. Futurists like Ray Kurzweil argue that digital immortality is inevitable. And philosophers? They've been wrestling with this nightmare for centuries. So today we're asking one of the strangest, most unsettling questions ever imagined. What happens to identity if you upload a mind to a machine? Because if the answer is yes, if it really can be done, then your grandchildren may not have funerals. They may have software updates. For as long as humans have walked the earth, we have carried one inescapable truth on our backs. We die. No matter how powerful, wealthy or wise, every person eventually faces the same ending. And yet we've never been satisfied with that answer. The fear of death and the longing to escape it has shaped entire civilizations. The Egyptians embalmed their pharaohs, building towering pyramids to preserve their place in eternity. Ancient myths told of rivers of souls, heavenly kingdoms and reincarnations, where life could continue beyond the grave. Every culture, in its own way, imagined that there must be something more, some loophole to mortality. Fast forward thousands of years, and the obsession hasn't faded. Today we don't speak in the language of tombs and gods, but in the language of technology. Now instead of building monuments, we build machines. And instead of praying for divine rescue, we look to science to rewrite the rules of life and death. This is where the dream of digital immortality enters. Imagine if death wasn't the end of consciousness, but just a technical problem to be solved. What if your mind, your memories, your thoughts, your very identity could be transferred into a machine like files copied from one hard drive to another? Science fiction has been playing with this fantasy for decades. From The Matrix, where human minds live inside simulated worlds, to Black Mirror, where consciousness can be transferred into digital bodies, the idea keeps coming back. These stories capture something primal, our refusal to accept the finality of death. And it's not just fiction anymore. Visionaries in Silicon Valley, futurists, and even neuroscientists talk about it openly. Companies are already pouring millions into technologies that might one day make mind uploading possible. People like Elon Musk with Neuralink, or organizations like the 2045 Initiative, speak of a future where your body can fail but your mind lives on, in data, in servers, in machines. But here's the question lurking behind the dream. If you upload your mind to a machine, and it wakes up smiling back at you from a screen, is that really you? Or is it just a copy, a digital twin that thinks it's you while the original you is still mortal, still destined for death? The dream of digital immortality sounds like salvation, but perhaps it's also the beginning of a nightmare. Before we can even begin to imagine uploading a mind, we need to stop and ask a deceptively simple question. What exactly is you? It sounds obvious at first. You're you, I'm me. But when we dig into it, identity is not so straightforward. Are you your memories, your personality, your body, your soul? Or are you something else entirely? Philosophers have wrestled with this for centuries. René Descartes famously said, "I think, therefore I am." For him, the essence of identity was thought itself, conscious awareness. John Locke, on the other hand, argued that identity comes from memory. If you can remember your experiences, if your life has continuity, then that's what makes you you. But here's the complication. Memory can be fragile. We forget, we change. If you lose your memories in an accident, are you still the same person? If your brain slowly rewires itself over decades, as it does naturally, when do you stop being the original you and start becoming someone new? This is where one of the most famous thought experiments comes in, the ship of Theseus. Imagine an ancient ship. Over the years, one by one, each plank of wood is replaced with a new one. Eventually, none of the original parts remain. Is it still the same ship, or is it an entirely new one? Now apply that to yourself. Your body is constantly renewing itself. Cells die, cells grow. Even neurons, while not replaced in the same way, change their connections across time. Are you still the same person you were at age 5? Or are you a new ship, carrying only the memory of that child? Mind uploading magnifies this paradox. If we scan your brain and reproduce every connection in a machine, is that machine you, or is it just a copy? If continuity is what matters, Then perhaps no, because your biological consciousness doesn't move. It just ends while a digital version begins. But if memory and thought are what matter, then maybe yes. The machine thinks it's you. It remembers your first kiss, your first heartbreak, your favorite food. From the inside, it feels identical. So how could it not be you? This is the haunting puzzle of identity. It seems simple, until you try to draw the line. And the truth is, the line might not even exist. So when we ask, what happens to identity if you upload your mind into a machine? The answer depends entirely on what you believe you actually are. And that question, what you means, is the very heart of this entire debate. If identity is a puzzle, then science is the toolbox we're hoping can solve it. So how close are we really to uploading a human mind into a machine? At its core, the idea sounds deceptively simple. Take the brain, scan every neuron, every synapse, every electrical pulse, and rebuild it in digital form. Your thoughts, your memories, your entire consciousness, mapped and preserved as data. But here's the challenge. The human brain is the most complex object in the known universe. It contains roughly 86 billion neurons. Each neuron makes up to 10,000 connections with others. That's over 100 trillion synapses, firing in a living, ever-changing storm. Capturing that is like trying to photograph a hurricane, not just once, but every single second, forever. Scientists call this ultimate blueprint the connectome, a complete wiring diagram of the brain. If we could map the connectome in detail, the theory goes, we could reproduce it inside a machine. In essence, uploading isn't just about scanning. It's about rebuilding the entire storm of the mind, and believe it or not, we've started. In 2019, researchers managed to map the complete connectome of a fruit fly brain, just 100,000 neurons. In 2021, they imaged part of a mouse's brain at unprecedented resolution, revealing tens of thousands of synapses. Each step is a glimpse into the scale of what it might take to capture a human brain. Then there's the hardware problem. The human brain runs on about 20 watts of power, less than a light bulb. To simulate just 1 second of activity in a fraction of the brain, modern supercomputers can take minutes or even hours using thousands of watts. A full-scale simulation would require machines far beyond what we have today. Yet progress is happening in parallel. AI systems now mimic human speech, problem-solving, even creativity, in ways that were unthinkable a decade ago. Brain-computer interfaces, like Elon Musk's Neuralink, are already experimenting with reading and writing neural signals directly. And quantum computing, still in its infancy, promises the kind of unimaginable processing power that could make a digital brain not just fantasy, but possible. That is us, or just a machine playing dress-up, is something no microscope, no supercomputer can prove. For now, we stand at the threshold. We can see the path, brain scans, AI models, neural maps, but the journey is long, uncertain, and perhaps impossible. Still, humanity has never been deterred by impossible. And if we do reach that moment, when the first human consciousness flickers awake inside a machine, the real questions won't be about science anymore. They'll be about philosophy, ethics, and survival. Let's say the science works. Your brain has been scanned, every neuron mapped, every synapse recorded, every electrical signal replicated. The data is uploaded into a machine, and a new you wakes up. It opens its eyes. If eyes exist in this digital world, it remembers your childhood, your friends, your loves. It feels the same memories, the same emotions. It looks in the mirror, digital or not, and says, I am me. But here's the problem. You are still here too. The original you. The one made of flesh and blood. The one sitting in the scanning chair, blinking in confusion as your digital twin claims your life. Which one is really you? This is called the copy problem. And it's not science fiction. It's a fundamental paradox.